What's up, YouTube? On this episode of Coddiwomple Overland, we're going to talk about overlanding in the east versus the west. Coddiwomple Overland is proudly powered by Cummins Off-road, home of the Lifetime powertrain. Also in part by Overland Vehicle Systems, Faster Freight, and Trail Rated Coffee. Be on the lookout for more Expo 2023. Well, Deb and I have been off-roading pretty much all of our lives. In the last 3 years, we've done quite a bit of overlanding, and that has brought our travels everywhere from the Outer Banks of North Carolina all the way west to the middle of Utah.
We've had a lot of people say the east versus the west, one side is better than the other. We're going to share with you our experiences that we have found the east versus the west.
So I guess one of the first things we really need to talk about is exactly what is overlanding. So I think overlanding, really it depends on your own personal thought of what overlanding might be. Is it where you're going to go out and spend multiple days off grid or out in the woods, or are you going to go spend multiple weeks completely off grid and separated? Or is it just going out to the national forest or a local area that you may have and just spending a night, making it a day trip or a 2-day trip?
And with that being said, how much food, water, and fuel can you actually carry to be gone? How long can you be gone?
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, most people can only carry enough fuel for 150, 200, maybe 300 miles.
Right.
And if you do an average of 100 miles a day, you know, the furthest you can be out or the longest you can be away from civilization is about 3 days. The only real exception to that might be the fact that they just go out and camp for a week.
Right. So how much fuel can we carry?
Right now, in the JK, we had a full tank, which was 20 gallons, and then we had two 2-gallon rotopacks, so we had extra 4 gallons. So we had a total of 24 gallons. So that normally gave us a range of around 200 to 240 miles. So with the Gladiator, the Gladiator's a little bit more room, obviously, so we can carry some extra fuel. The Gladiator, just like the JK, only has a 20-gallon tank, but we're able to carry 2 3.5-gallon rotopacks inside the back of the Gladiator, which gives us 7 more gallons of fuel capacity. So the other good thing about the Gladiator is we get a little bit better gas mileage, and we've increased our range to 300 to 350 miles. With the 300 miles or so of fuel range that we have in the Gladiator, that's going to give us 3 to 4 days of fuel capacity, depending on where we're at and how many miles per day that we're going to travel. So at the end of that, we're going to have to find civilization somewhere for a refuel stop.
So what about water?
Well, with the water, we have added a 13-gallon water can or water tank behind the slides here, and that's from Ironman. That's given us a pretty good range as far as water goes. That 13 gallons of water should last us about 3 days, which is the same thing that our fuel typically will last us.
Okay. So we've covered fuel and water, so how much food can we take?
Well, in the Gladiator, we can carry quite a bit more than we could.
Yeah, we upgraded that part.
In the Wrangler, we've upgraded from a 53-quart fridge freezer to the Iceco 65-quart, which gave us a lot more capacity. That was one of the things that we struggled with when we were out west, was the fact that it seemed like every time we turned around, we were having to go to a grocery store.
Right.
Now, being able to pick up water and be able to pick up fuel, we can normally do that at a convenience store, but if you're going to have to resupply for groceries, you're just going to have to go to a legitimate town and find a grocery store.
Right.
And a lot of those grocery stores we found out west was quite a bit more expensive.
Yes.
And even in the east, some of the places we're at, we're an hour and a half away from a grocery store. So we've got to completely get off of our route wherever we're at and travel to be able to find food.
Just like when we were in that one little town that we thought might have groceries, just to get ice, when we had our cooler, trying to find ice for the cooler at our house.
It was a general store. It was at a fish camp in North Carolina.
Right.
And they weren't actually open. The lady was gracious enough to go in and empty her
ice bin
out of her fridge freezer. And that's how we kept our food cold for the rest of the day until we were finally able to find some ice. So it can be just as remote on the east side as it is on the west side when it comes to finding supplies like that. Now, getting back to the food, so we have the 65 quart. It's now a fridge freezer, so we can freeze a bunch of meat if we need to. And then we have the dry storage box. So we can actually double up, and we could probably carry a week's worth of food without any problem at all between the ice box or the fridge freezer and the dry storage. So that helps us out with our food and being able to go a little bit farther distances.
Right. So we know we can be gone 3 to 4 days off grid.
Yeah.
And we know we can do that out west.
Yeah, there's plenty of room and plenty of places in Utah, Colorado, the places that we've been, and we also know that further out west in some of the other states, you can definitely stay off grid on Bureau of Land Management property or National Forest Service. You can stay completely remote for that amount of days.
Okay, so can we do that on the east?
I think we can. As a matter of fact, I know we can because we have done it before. There's been times in West Virginia, the Monongahela, we went 3 days and didn't even have cell signal.
Right.
You know, much less being at an area where we could get to a grocery store or fuel or any other type of resupply. Other places that come to mind is you could spend a couple days in the Daniel Boone National Forest and be completely off grid and not be close to anything. Or just like we had talked about earlier, the Smoky Mountain 1000, when we were down into the Nantahala National Forest and some of the other National Forest Cherokee, we were completely off grid for multiple days and could have stayed off grid for many more.
Right. So some people say that the trails are harder on one side versus the other.
Yeah, we hear a lot of that, and I don't know that they're any harder one place or the other. There are harder aspects of both. However, the east side of the United States, the middle part of the United States, you know, the west, and even far west is all completely different. What we found here, close to home, in the eastern part of the United States, is it's typically muddy. If it's not muddy, it's super dusty. When it is muddy, everything is extremely slick. There's no grip on the rocks whatsoever.
Right.
You're slipping, you're sliding. I've heard many people talk about West Coast or Western United States wheeling is so much different than Eastern United States wheeling, and it's because there's so much grip. You know, Utah, they call it slick rock, but you know, there's nothing really slick about it. It's super grippy, and you can go up really steep stuff without any problems.
Right.
However, here on the East Coast or in the Eastern United States, when those rocks get slick, when they get muddy or they get wet, you've got to use a little bit of the loud pedal to get up stuff. And the same way goes with the far western, like Seattle, Oregon, where it's always wet. So it's not that it's any more difficult, it's difficult in different situations.
Right. So do you think one side is prettier than the other side?
Again, I think it's all perspective. You have the desert that's wide open and it's brown with all the different color rocks and the reds and the blues and the greens even. And then you have Colorado that are these astonishing mountains that are wide open. You have the aspen trees, which, you know, are both our favorites. And you can see back through the forest. But then on the East Coast, you can get up on top of some of the mountains here, and you can see forever too. But it's just that lush green rainforest type thing. So, and when you get way down deep into the forest, you know, you're covered by all of these colors and lush greenery. It's just totally different. I think they're both very pretty, but just it depends on what you're looking for and what you like. What do you think?
I like both. I know, being from Eastern Kentucky, when we went out west, I was like, wow, because we have nothing remotely like that. So it was beautiful out there. But then I was also, when we came back and we did, you know, South Carolina area, and we drove through the Smoky Mountains, I was like, gosh, I really miss this, because it's just beautiful in a different way.
Yeah, I'd agree. And, you know, there's a lot of people that come from out west to eastern parts to wheel or to Overland, and they're just as amazed at how green and full everything is here,
Right.
compared to when we go out there. We're just amazed at how open everything is.
Right.
Yeah. So, there's good with both sides. It depends really on what you're looking for.
Right.
And then we've talked about east versus west. There's a big place that we found on our last trip that's kind of in the middle of those that surprised us both.
Right.
Missouri, Arkansas, we just went to the Expo, and had a great time meeting people, hanging out with people. But after we left there, we spent some time in the Mark Twain National Forest, and that place was really not even on our radar.
Right.
That was just, okay, we've got an extra few days, let's stop in here and just check and see what it's about. It was absolutely amazing. So every place, I think, has its own special places.
Right. I agree. The hardest thing in the East is probably finding camping.
I agree with that. Out west, it is much easier because there's much bigger blocks of public land.
Right.
70, I think the number is 73% of all of the property in Utah is actually publicly owned. And I think Wyoming or Idaho, I think it's Wyoming, is just about the same.
Yeah.
So there's huge amounts of property out there that are just completely open and available for the public. However, the eastern United States is not that way. It's much more populated, and it is. We live in eastern Kentucky, and we are within an 8 hours drive of half of the nation's population.
Right.
So there's just going to be a lot more people there, and a lot more people own their own property. So our national forests in this area are much smaller. We don't have any Bureau of Land Management properties.
Right.
So being able to find public property to be able to openly disperse camp on is a little tougher, and it takes a little more work. The other thing is some of the national forests won't even allow you to just disperse camp.
Right.
So you've got to have to camp where they want you to camp.
Yes.
It's more primitive camping in designated areas. So you definitely have to pick your spots and do a lot more research when it comes to overlanding in the East Coast. Can it
Right.
be done? Absolutely. Is it beautiful? Most definitely.
Yes.
Does it take more work to plan your routes and be able to make those work? Yes, it does take planning. You can't just say, okay, let's pack the Jeep up and go north and we'll find somewhere to camp.
Right.
It doesn't work that way here.
Right. Do you think there's a difference in weather, or is it just us?
Well, the black cloud seems to follow.
It does.
It never fails. Everywhere we go, we have rain. The only place that only state that we have been in that it didn't rain on us was Colorado.
Yeah, I don't think it did.
No.
Was the hailstorm in Colorado?
Nope.
That was Utah?
That was the Henry Mountains in Utah.
Okay.
So we had that week or so of absolutely beautiful weather in Colorado. But, we talked about planning a minute ago. We planned our route or our trip out to Utah and Colorado last year, the end of August. Not being from that area and not doing a whole lot of research on weather,
Yeah.
it was monsoon season in
Yeah.
the desert. So
And
of
we
course,
brought it.
yeah, of course the rain followed us. We ended up with rain. We ended up with hailstorms. We ended up with 4-inch thick mud.
50
trying
mile
to
an hour
drive
winds.
through the desert, 50-mile-an-hour winds, and flash floods.
Right.
So you can get rain anywhere. You can get wet anywhere. I know we've never been out there in the wintertime. It looks like it, definitely snows out there. That's one of the things we talked about. Well, we're not going to go during monsoon season this year. We're going to go in early June. Well,
Yeah.
we talked about going to Colorado in early June. The problem with that is what?
It's closed. Most of the passes are closed due to snow.
All right, so that's another thing that you may need to think of is, let's plan for the weather. What's it going to be like? We've been on several trips that we've had to watch the weather, and we may just not be hardcore as some, or I don't know, but sometimes you just have to call it and say we're going to go get a room because there's tornadoes in the area. You know, so you've got to be weather aware, as they say. But I think no matter where you're at, there could be the potential for bad weather, and you need to keep an eye for that. So we've talked about all these different aspects of east versus the west. What's your favorite place to overland?
My favorite place to overland would be somewhere we haven't been. Just to see the new sights and everything. But I guess because we live here and we see this side so much, I would want to go out west. The west draws me because there's so much you can see out there, and we see this side of it. So I want to see that side of it.
Yeah, I want to explore more of that side and see more of that side. But there's one place on the East Coast, and I'm going to say East Coast because we're going near the coast, that we've always wanted to go, and we're planning on going this fall.
Yeah.
And that's, we're going to go up into the New England states, the North Maine woods.
Yes.
Hopefully in September is the plan, and try to catch the fall colors up there.
Yes.
So that's another one of those things that we're going to have to try to plan for a little bit to make sure that we're there at the right time for peak season. So it all goes back to planning. When it comes, what I think is, for me, is my favorite areas so far is Utah. I loved Utah, and so far that has been my favorite place. I would go back there. I'd go there tomorrow. As a matter of fact, we're going to go back there this year. But there's so many other places that we both want to go. While we may have a favorite today, by the end of the year we may have a totally different favorite.
Right.
So, and that's what makes the adventure of overlanding so cool, is the want and the drive to find new places.
Right.
So.
Another question we get is, with all the route planning we do, are we structured?
Okay, no, we're not really that structured. We've got a plan. Anytime that we go on a trip, we obviously want to have a general idea of where we're going to go. When we went out west, you and I got together and took several months along with everybody else that went with us. There were several Zoom calls, on planning this trip of things that we wanted to do. And we had a general trip itinerary, if you will. We had a route. We knew kind of where we wanted to go and what we wanted to do. But if we happened to see something out there, we would make that detour and absolutely go check it out. If it cost us another day or whatever, then that's what we had to do. And that's what we would do, and we were fine with it. And that did actually happen.
Right. Several times.
We had, a couple times we had to make different turns, and we had a tentative area that we thought we wanted to camp at, and by the time we got there, it was 6 o'clock in the evening, which was a good time to stop.
But it was 113
degrees. So we all voted to move on because that would have been just a little bit miserable.
Right.
You've got to be fluid in your planning. You can't be structured.
Right.
We tried structured one time.
Oh yeah, and it didn't work out.
It failed miserably. That was, what could have been a beautiful trip.
Right.
Turned into the most miserable trip that we ever took. And that was the lighthouse tour that we done. You can go back and check on it. We did not like the structure at all. It did not work for us.
It did not work.
So be fluid, have a general plan, but be as fluid as you can.
Right.
And that doesn't matter where you're at, whether you're in the United States or South America.
Right.
It doesn't matter. You've still got to have a general plan.
Yeah.
So unless you just the plan is to go to the desert and just wander around for a few days.
Right.
You still got a plan. It's a plan.
That's right.
All right. So, we've talked about all this, and I guess we kind of got detoured just a little bit, but what's better, east or the west?
It depends on what you want to do.
It's what's better for who?
For you.
For you.
Whoever
That's
you
right.
are.
So you may think that, in Utah or Arizona, you have the best overlanding in the world. I have no doubt that it is some of the best in the world. But then again, the Ozarks, you may think that you have the best overlanding in the Ozarks. The Ozarks are wonderful. We haven't been there. We've been to the Mark Twain. Mark Twain. So we've been Mark Twain. We've been to the Mark Twain, and we've been close. And I can't wait to get to the Ozarks. It looks like it's going to be incredible.
Yeah.
And then, you know, another place that we haven't been to that I really want to go to, and I'm sure is going to be amazing, is the upper North Pacific.
Right.
You know, Washington, Oregon, Northern California, where the redwoods, the big trees are.
Right.
Can't wait to see some of that stuff.
Yeah, and on this side, I mean, we have the Cat and the Daniel Boone Backcountry Byway, which is, you know, one of the best challenged areas in Kentucky.
Yeah, I mean, we've done a lot of the backcountry discovery routes, and so far, you know, the Kentucky Adventure Tour is right up there with. I think it's more difficult than any one we've done.
Right.
So, you know, we do have some really good overlanding routes here too.
Right.
And then we've connected routes from the Pennsylvania-New York border all the way down into Georgia and Alabama.
Right.
So you can overland anywhere in the United States. It's not that one is better than the other. It's just what you like better. Thanks again for watching Coddiwomple Overland. We hope that you've got some good information out of this and got a little bit of insight as far as our opinion on whether the East Coast or the West side of the United States is better. Check out some of our other videos and see if those are places that you might like to go in the future. And until next time, see ya.